Afghan national in custody after shooting 2 National Guard members near the White House. That's the headline. But before we panic or let politicians weaponize it, we do need to look at the actual history of violence by people from Afghanistan in the West. And the timeline will actually tell you a very different story. When you look at the major terrorist attacks in the US and Western Europe since 2001, 9/11, London, Madrid, Paris, Brussels, Nice, none of the perpetrators were from Afghanistan. Afghans weren't leading a wave of attacks in the West. They were escaping it. For decades, refugees from Afghanistan integrated quietly in their communities because they were fleeing the very groups the West feared. But after the Taliban returned in 2021, 2 new dangerous currents have emerged, both shaped by the fall of Kabul and the chaos that it left behind. First of all, tens of thousands of soldiers, commanders, intelligence officers, people who fought extremism with the US and NATO lost their government, income, and purpose overnight. Many were evacuated in August and September 2021, including the Washington suspect. Lakanwal actually arrived in the US under Joe Biden's resettlement program. But because of the chaos rushed evacuation, the sudden give up and abandonment of a nation, there was no real vetting, no due process, and no structured mental health support afterwards. People were rushed through airport gates in panic. Many of the most vulnerable women's rights activists, judges, journalists, civil society leaders are still stuck in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, because the Taliban controlled access to the airport, anyone they wanted could push through. And that's not speculation. The UK Ministry of Defence itself has admitted that in a recent data leak, that people who were linked to the Taliban made it onto those evacuation flights. But the second shift is ideological. A former terrorist organisation suddenly became a government with a global megaphone. After 2021, European intelligence agencies reported a rise in Taliban-inspired political Islam. In Germany, an attacker in 2022 used Taliban-style religious slogans and had Taliban media on his phone. Another one shared pro-Taliban content online and was investigated for extremist motives after a stabbing in 2023. And across Germany, Austria, the Netherlands, men from Afghanistan joined pro-Taliban Telegram channels and circulated propaganda praising the Islamic Emirate. This ideological confidence, this sense of Taliban victory, simply didn't exist before 2021. And yet in the West, all of this gets reduced to people from Afghanistan are dangerous. Politicians are now using this isolated case to block immigration routes for those people who truly deserve and need our protection, especially women and girls from Afghanistan. So we have to be clear, this is what happens when the world walks away and leaves a militant regime to shape the narrative instead.